I try not to be scary. It's already scary enough.
Yeah.
We try to, when we talk to customers, they know the dangers, like they hear about it every day.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do is try to show them that they came to the right place. We're the team that's going to be there to help them prevent the attack, but also recover if, we don't,
Yeah.
not there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is all we're going to do is we're going to talk about it. In fact, I want to ask you about that. At the end, we'll turn this into the story and all that kind of wonderful stuff. But on that note, question for you, Dan, what are we up against? How bad is it? Not just for BTA, but in cybersecurity in general.
So there's three groups. I think about mainly three groups of people that wish to do us harm. The first group is cybercrime. This is a multi-billion-dollar underground business, and they treat it like a business. The cybercrime business has evolved. They're using different methods, but they're very effective and it's very profitable, and they're making a ton of money. And one example is criminals are able to do extortion. This is the same extortion that criminals have been doing for 1,000 years, but now thanks to the internet, they don't have to be in your physical location. They don't have to kidnap somebody in person. They can just kidnap your files or your business and then ask for a ransom. And that ransom would be an internet-based money, like a type of cryptocurrency. So that it enables them to scale their attacks. And what they can do is hire different people for different stages of the attack. They have enough money to pay insider threats. Like think of disgruntled employees, low paid employees. They can offer them $5,000, $10,000. Hey, I'm going to send you an email. All I want you to do is click on it and then walk away. No big deal. We'll send you $10,000 untraceable internet money.
It's like the mob. I mean, it's the same theme, different era. It sounds very much like the same, whatever human condition that gave us the mob and earlier versions of that. Extortion goes back to Greek mythology. It's the same theme, different era.
Yes, sir. Organized crime, right? It's the same. It's a pattern. It just happens. It just keeps repeating. And what they've done is just use the modern technology, but it's still the same mentality. Is like, how can we do crime? They also hire people to do initial access. That they have HR, they have customer service, they pay bonuses, they have affiliate marketing. Everything that a business has, these guys have, except it's a criminal enterprise. So they're not asking permission. They're not writing a statement of work. They're not doing the proper contracting. They just go and do the work. They go and do a penetration test. They go do a cyber attack, but it's not simulated. They actually break in, do damage, encrypt files, and then they go and ask for payment. And they say, hey, and in their twisted mind, they're thinking of it as a service. They're like, we just did you a service. We're going to tell you how to decrypt your files, and we're going to tell you how we got in, and we're going to make a recommendation of how you can block this from happening in the future. And they have a nice website where you can talk to them and ask questions. They provide customer service.
How do they do? Because you had mentioned, they run it like a business, and clearly, as you articulated, they do. It's not hard to run a business in a legal sense in a very visible way, and the things you just described are things that those of us in legitimate business do every day. How can they provide that but still stay under the radar? How does that come together?
So I've asked them, part of my job, I help customers recover from these type of attacks. So sometimes I speak directly to the cyber criminals in this customer service chat that they set up on the dark web. And sometimes I just ask them, why are you doing this? Why are you in crime when you have the skills to do this as a legitimate business? And what they've told me more than once is they say, in my country, the economy is in shambles. I'm a software engineer. I'm a computer programmer. I'm something cyber related. I can't find a job. I have a family, I have bills to pay. I got involved in this. I didn't know it was crime when I got involved. I was hired to do a job, and then I started to get suspicious about the job. It turns out to be crime, but then they offered to double my pay or triple my pay to keep working. So I did it because it was the best job that there is.
So their economic conditions kind of bring what we would consider abnormal behavior in America when we don't have war in our country, economic conditions where a software engineer can't find any work. We don't have those. So not to legitimatize those reasons, but
it's really sad. And their home country allows them to attack US companies. Even though this kind of criminal activity is illegal, like they would lock them up if they did the same type of extortion against their own country or against one of the countries in that area. This like former Russian I think they call it CIS, the acronym CIS for all the former Soviet nation states. If they attack any of those countries, they're at risk of getting arrested, for breaking the law. But if they're attacking a US company, it's like they turn a blind eye. They let it happen. They let it slide.
There's geopolitical considerations there, of course. Speaking of that, give us a sense on either by region or by country, where do most of the bad actors come from? Where should we watch out?
Yeah, we basically look at Russia, China, North Korea, Iran. Those are the top four. But honestly, cybercrime can come from any country, even from within. But really, those four seem to be the most, politically active, using cyber warfare to, support their political agenda.
So there's both private or economic, a software person trying to make money in a tough country. But you're talking about there's political, at least looking away. Do you think there's political go ahead and do it, like advocacy for this?
Yeah, definitely. If you can read some of the reporting where it shows direct links to those nation states militaries. And by the way, this is the second group. When I mentioned that we typically bundle these into three separate groups. The first one, cybercrime, but then the second one, closely related, is the nation state attacking groups, the military hackers. So in some countries, there's a blurry line between those two groups because it might be the same person wearing a different hat on a different day. But this second group, they have a different objective. The first group is more profit driven. They're in the business to make money. The second group is really espionage. They're trying to get intelligence. They're trying to, get as much information about a target country as they can. They want to,
state-sponsored espionage.
State-sponsored espionage. They're trying to steal information that could be valuable to the state. So, whatever that might be, political or economic, they're going to try to get unauthorized access to networks, to file systems, to messaging, to messages, send that back to their, the government office, and then they process it and say, this has some intel value to our organization, and that's again.
Does that state sanctioned effort talk a little bit about? I think we tend to think about that in terms of they're trying to come into our government files.
Yes.
But it's not just government files, isn't it?
It could be in the US. You know how we have a lot of organizations that are that have DoD contracts.
Yep.
You have a lot of contracting companies, or you have companies that are dealing with controlled but unclassified information. They call it CUI. And you'll hear about a framework called CMMC, this cyber maturity model, and that's saying, where the US government wants these organizations to have a certain level of security in order to prevent these other foreign adversaries from getting access to this valuable information. So what things do you need to have place in your network to prevent a nation state from getting unauthorized access? So that's hundreds of thousands. That's a lot of companies in the US have some type of data that would be valuable to a foreign nation.
The United States is the largest employer in our country, and I think people tend to think about that in terms of, you know, oh, you're in this public entity or you're in this military service. But it is not the case. I mean, it's from infrastructure through building of things that are needed by the government, war materials and that kind of stuff. So it's
Yes, sir,
pervasive.
exactly. Also hotels, you know, where are people staying? Where are they? How long are they there for? You know, everything could have some type of intelligence value depending on your objectives. If you're trying to figure out where people are and where they're going or what they're doing, you know, hotel, flight, Uber, even Uber would be valuable,
Wow.
you know.
Wow.
So
So it's a pervasive and growing thing. Speaking of that, oh, you mentioned a third. What is the third? Yeah, that's right. For profit, state sponsored, and number three.
The third one is a mixture. I bundle them all together in the third one. This is like the hacktivism, you know, the lone wolves, the student hackers, the random people just doing, you know, playing around. I group all of those together, and it's unpredictable, and they do it for different reasons. They have different motivations, they have different ideology, and they use, you know, whatever tool and method that they have available to them, but they're just not one of the other two. They're not cybercrime, they're not nation state, there's the third option.
Activism.
Yeah, hacktivism is an interesting one. You know, you might have a company that's doing something that they disagree with, so then they go and deface their website with some message. You know, you could think of if you watch the new, you know, fighting against have organizations like PETA, companies that are people and companies who are against certain things, whatever. It could be religious, it could be like some kind of faith-based organization. For whatever reason, they feel strongly about something, and then there is some faction within that group that is like a hacker. They have the skills and ability to go and do something to a target, and most of the time it's not it doesn't cause the business to go bankrupt. It doesn't destroy the company. It's more to raise awareness for a cause.
Sure.
You know, it's sometimes it can bleed into cybercrime if they're stealing things. Like there was a group of kids that was going around hacking a bunch of companies and stealing games. They would hack into a video game company and steal the game, but then instead of, you know, selling it, they just released the source code online, like kind of a leak.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that,
Yeah.
and, you know, so that it's not exactly cybercrime because they're not trying to profit, but they did get unauthorized access. They did steal the source code and they did leak it. So that's the third group.
That's the third group. How do you feel about, kind of staying with the macro picture, how do you feel about as a country, our ability to control or regulate, you know, this whole internet playground that these three segments of hackers are just running into and causing chaos, right? It feels like the Wild West, is as technical as it is, right? Bill Gates created this thing and the internet exists. There's all this digital stuff, but it feels like the Wild West. How do you feel like how do we have the ability to put any sense of control on it?
I think the US military does have a lot of capabilities in cyberspace, you know, because the way, and I'm former military, right? Like I retired from the Air Force Space Command, which was a component of Air Force Cyber at the time. It was the way we were organized was under Space Command, but it was actually Air Force Cyber Command. So we do have the capability. We have a lot of capabilities in cyberspace, and we think of cyberspace as a domain of warfare. So, you know, you have air and land and sea and space, you know, these other domains. Cyberspace is its own domain. It's the information domain. It's where all of our data is. It's where all the systems are connected. The US government has amazing capabilities in this domain, the same way the Air Force has amazing capabilities in the sky, you know, with the fighters and the bombers and everything else. So there potentially is a way for the US military to provide defense to the whole country But whenever it seems like whenever the military goes to Congress to get authorization to do something like that, there's pushback because of privacy and other considerations. Because in order to defend a network, you have to analyze the network. You have to analyze the traffic. Looking for suspicious activity. Most people are not comfortable with the government having that level of, access to the network flow and the data. So they might be hesitant. They don't want to, they're like, we'll defend ourselves, and also there are organizations who, they believe that they're able to defend their network better and they can invest money in their own security. So if the military wants to do it at the edge, do it at the boundary of our internet coming into the US. Great, do it there, but let me maintain security of myself, my own network, my own domain.
It's an interesting juxtaposition. The military sees it. What did you say? It's a war zone, or how did
Yeah,
they?
it's one of the domains of warfare.
It's a
So
domain
we
of
call it,
warfare.
yeah, we
Okay.
call it the fifth domain. If you look up the fifth domain, that's the information cyberspace domain, and the internet and all of the data and information that's connected to it.
What a juxtaposition, because it's a domain of culture. It's a domain of economy. Obviously, it's a domain of political influence. It's pretty crazy when you think about these aspects to our society have existed forever, right? War, economy, culture, religion, all of that, but
Yeah.
never had they had to all shove through one little digital pipe.
Right. And there's no borders, there's no physical borders. Like I can reach out and talk to somebody anywhere in the world on the internet, and I don't have to physically go there. We can just go to the same website, the same chat room, the same, group, and express our ideas. And you have a lot of these groups that are being created, on different social media platforms. So you have these Facebook groups, you have WhatsApp groups, you have Telegram groups, and it's where it's bringing people together for some, common subject. And it doesn't matter what country they're from. It doesn't even matter what language they speak, because some of these tools will automatically translate whatever they type in to whatever language you speak. So now, you're able to have this global melting pot of ideas, and it's good. And for the same reasons it's good, it can also be used for evil.
Bad and evil. Do you have your arms around some of the numbers? Like, how big do you think the cyber, let's just talk about it in terms of the hacking for money. What do you think that economy is globally now?
So it's hard to really calculate a total. I see it every day. I see more victims, and I see the ransom amounts going up, and they're being paid in most of the time they're being paid in Bitcoin, which the value of Bitcoin also goes up. So in general, I can say it's in the billions, but as for a total, I haven't done the math on that yet.
Well, we'll do that in this process. And interestingly enough, we'll have to go to the internet to find it. And by doing so, I'm sure we'll get a cookie on us by somebody who's interested in what we're looking at, thus completing the circle.
Sure.
What got you into this?
So my history, my connection to cyberspace started very young. My parents were military, and specifically my grandfather worked for IBM. So he worked for IBM for 40 years, and before that he was in the military. He was in the Air Force, and he had a room in his house which was the computer room, and kids, it was off limits to kids, but he would always be in there. It was filled from the floor to ceiling with electronics and devices and computers and robots. And I would always sneak in there, whenever he wasn't around, I'd try to sneak in there. And he just inspired me to be interested in electronics and computer systems. When I was
How old
about
were you?
12, he gave me one.
How old were you when you first started tinkering?
I mean, my earliest memory is with him in the computer room, playing Atari games, or, some kind of some kind of MS-DOS based games like Sockwith.
Mhm.
Sockwith is a really cool game, and the sound, the music to that game is the Air Force song, just in a MIDI format. So that's always been in my brain. But yeah, I think when I was about 12, he gave me one, and he didn't even tell me how to use it. He just delivered it for my birthday, and he's like, figure it out. So I took it apart a few times. I messed it up a few times, and then he would just come by and put it back together. And then eventually I got involved in a lot of the online communities like IRC and ICQ and AOL, Instant Messenger and Yahoo Chat, just a lot of those random things, and meeting people and talking about things. This was this is like mid 90s, so there was a lot of hacking for fun going on in Texas. We had a group called the Cult of the Dead Cow, the CDC. They came out with some fun hacking tools that we used to play around with. It's cool, as you can imagine, as kids, not understanding the implication of what we're doing, getting unauthorized access to the school network, and then the school not really having the staff aware of these kind of tools as well. And then also DEF CON in Vegas had just started. So I think the first one that I was aware of was DEF CON 5, like in either 97 or 98. So very early days of hacking,
Wow.
and then I'm sure my grandfather was involved even earlier than that, like probably 70s, 80s era hacking, when they're getting in and changing the code of these older systems.
Your grandfather sounds like an amazing man.
Bless, yeah, bless him. He
Yeah.
he put me on this path. He's still alive, still with us.
He is.
Great. Yep.
Wonderful.
Still around. And
That's
that's how it all got started. So I joined all of the clubs, all the computer clubs. I was getting into video game hacking, to make your character jump
Mhm.
higher, run faster. And then I joined the military in 2001, which
Why?
was
What, how did you go from this digital age fascination and move into let's defend our country?
it was just, I think it was just because my family was military, and it seemed to be the best route for me to also, my grandfather was Air Force, my mother was Air Force. So, I wanted to be like the family and join the military. And I felt like it was just a good path for me. I wasn't thinking about really anything else. I had tried some other jobs, but nothing, I didn't feel like I fit in. But joining the military, really, I felt like a home, an immediate family that I was just brought into with open arms. And
Mhm.
it's like, you don't have to have any skills, you don't have to know anything. We're going to teach you everything. We're going to teach you how to walk, how to talk, how to get dressed, and I needed that in my life. Up to that point, I just didn't have a lot of focus or direction. So the military changed everything, put me on a path. And I remember, talking to my supervisors, like, what should I do? And they're like, think of the core values. They tell you integrity first, service before self, excellence in all you do. Just do those three things. If you ever have a question about what should I be doing, think of those three things. So when it comes to a degree, what does the Air Force need? Think of the service before myself. So at the time, the military needed computer science, they needed calculus, they needed engineering. So I got a degree in computer science. And then what do they need next? They need cyber warfare operators. So I went and tested for that, got into that group where they had me doing offensive cyber operations. And then I said, what do we need now? So if you remember around this time, mid 2000s, we were still actively engaged in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I volunteered to deploy. I was like, whatever skills I have that you guys need, what do you need me to do? So they said there was a role that they needed filled, somebody to go and teach the Iraqi army how to do digital forensics. So I I had to go learn how to do digital forensics myself so I could go to Iraq and share that knowledge with the Iraqi army. So I did that in 2010, 2011. Unfortunately, I got injured while I was there because it was a very dangerous place to live and to work. So I ended up getting injured, and then that injury allowed me to retire early. So that's how I was able to retire, before officially hitting 20 years. I retired in 2015
from the Air Force.
Yeah.
Did you you talked about with military, service above self. It sounds like some of the world isn't about you. You gravitate to that. Can you talk a little bit about how you bring that into Blue Team Alpha in your company and that, because that seems like they're very connected.
Yes, exactly right. So Blue Team Alpha, we are veterans, and we look to hire people that have this similar core value system. And veterans, we just have it naturally, I think, because of the military service. But we also hire civilians that with no military background, if we believe they're a mission-driven type of person who feels like there's a bigger picture, like there's a service that we need to provide to our country, to our people, and this is how we contribute to society. And Blue Team Alpha, being a security provider, aligns really well with that belief, is that we are providing security to companies that are doing critical services, or they're a part of the critical infrastructure. This is things that are extremely important and necessary for a society to function, like city and state government, like the financial sector, like hospitals, schools, electricity production, water treatment facility, the things that a country needs to operate. Those are the things that we want to secure, because if they go down, it harms a lot of people. And sometimes we are the end customer. We're protecting ourselves. Like if one of my customers is a bank and I'm a customer of the bank, by providing security to the bank, I'm also protecting my family's bank account. So
we take a very large and wide angle view of your duty to America, and you just happen to run a cybersecurity company.
Yeah,
we do that. And it's interesting, because when I think about when I first, it's only been a few months getting to know Blue Team Alpha, but I thought, well, that's pretty smart that they're hiring from the military. These are obviously great training, people who know cyber. But I thought about it through that lens, like they're probably technically very capable at this. Before that, mission driven, service above self seemed to be the primary focus. And we'll get you, and the rest can come along for the ride. It's sort of, that's a fascinating and a great way to run a business.
We also, I've noticed that in a lot of industries, especially cybersecurity, or especially in industries that are lucrative, or I'll say hot. In industries that are hot, you see people coming into it for the wrong reasons. Sometimes they're profit driven. They're like, I want to do this job because it pays a lot. You can think of like being a doctor. You know how there's some people that want to be a doctor because they want to save lives and help people. Maybe that's most doctors, but then there are some number of people that want to do it because it pays a lot. So that's I want to try to avoid people working with people or hiring people that are profit driven, because Blue Team Alpha, we're not a profit driven company, so we're not making billions of dollars. We're going to scale whatever service we're providing to the customer's budget because they need it, because they're critical, and that's not super profitable. And we're able to do that because the company's mission driven, and the people that we recruit for the team are also mission driven. So, they understand that we're a small company with small customers, and, I can't afford to pay you what, $500,000 a year, what you're worth. The people we have on the team, yes, they're worth $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. But, that's not possible because of the economics of what we're doing and the type of services we're providing. And they understand and they agree to it. And they're like, it's okay. We have this grand vision to provide security to all of America in cyberspace, and we're not there yet. We're still small and growing, but I do think in the near future, we will be partnering with an organization like CISA, to provide security hand in hand with the government, so we can optimize for speed. That
You have a vision to defend America in cyberspace, and you're working against that all day, every day, as are your people, which is a beautiful thing. As you look down the road and you think big picture, and I'm a big fan of the Simon Sinek's and the Mark Cubans and these people who are able to see that. What do you see down the road? What kind of impact, not economic, what kind of impact do you hope to make on your journey here with Blue Team Alpha?
Yeah, so it's definitely huge. It's a huge endeavor, but I would say ideally what I would like to see is if instead of looking at each other, like the cybersecurity companies that are here in the US, what I'm trying to do is encourage the industry to move in a direction of partnership. So US-based cybersecurity companies, instead of us thinking and treating each other like competition, where we're competing for the customer's budget, I want to redirect the industry to say, look, we're on the same team. We have the same customers. We have a shared mission here. We're trying to, protect American business and the American way of life and the citizens and where we live and our people. That our actual true competition is the adversary. It's the cybercrime. It's the nation state espionage. It's all the hackers. Let's work together. Let's partner up. Let's stop treating each other like competition. Let's share intel with each other, and let's join up. Let's team up against our common enemy. So
there's a great model for that. There's always great models for that. Did you ever read the Volvo 3-point harness story? Did you ever read that?
Yeah, the seatbelt.
Right. They said we've got a thing, and the common enemy is car crashes and injuries.
Yes.
So they said you can all have our technology. Please put it in your cars.
Yes.
Cars. That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the mentality that we're thinking of cybersecurity. We should not be profit driven. If cybersecurity is profit driven, then things become optimized for profit. You try to extract the most money out of the customer as possible. And I think VC funding is part of the problem, because they're not thinking of the humanity of the problem and the situation. Big pharma, same problem. They profit from people being sick and getting treatment. They don't profit from a cure. Same thing for cybersecurity. If we don't profit from the cure, then maybe we're always in this rat race of, attacking and defending. Whereas there's a better way, where if we say, look, we're all on the same team, just like the military has different branches, the Army and Air Force, they're not competing with each other. They're working together. And you have this concept of joint force. That's what we're looking for, in the public-private arena. This public-private partnership idea, it's not a new idea, but now we're just trying to look for other companies that are mission-driven, that we can create these joint task force, or a joint SOC, or some joint service.
Do you think in order to defend cyberspace, do you think we have to get there? That's the natural conclusion we'll have to get to in order to do a good job there?
I do think we need to be aligned. Yes, we all have to row in the same direction.
Is there a place or a podium or a microphone that you're able to get your arms around in order to proliferate that message?
Well, for me, since I'm not, I'm not famous, I don't have a huge platform or podium. I start at my level, my peers. I talk to my peers about this. I go to conferences and I talk in the private networking groups that I'm in. I'm on the board at my local ISC squared chapter, and we have monthly meetings. So I'm just promoting this concept of joint force and shared mission and common enemy. That's the theme. That's the thread. And I'm trying to plant roots. And maybe it doesn't happen, anytime soon, but the next generation, the people that I'm hiring that are young and fresh, straight out of the military, and they come to Blue Team Alpha, and we tell them, here's our vision, help us achieve it.
Mhm.
Maybe the next gen gets it, maybe the next group.
Well, there's Alex and I were talking last week about this wonderful speech Simon Sinek gave on the infinite game. And I'll send it to you. I think you'll really enjoy it. But it talks about we're in business or in this world to make impact and you have to have a just cause. And profitability is not a just cause. It's an outcome of a just cause. And there's a bigger picture. How would you describe the just cause for you, and then of course for Blue Team Alpha?
The just cause, I don't have an easy answer for that, other than just improving people's lives. As an American, you want to have a nice life. You have an expectation of the American dream, and just being able to have the freedom to do whatever it is that you're doing. So the perfect cybersecurity would happen in the background, and you don't even need to know it's happening, but you're not getting hacked. Your bank account is not getting frozen. Your electricity provider is not going offline. So, you're able to just live a normal life in a secure environment. You're able to use the internet and not be afraid of clicking links and opening emails. Like how sad is that?
So sad.
I can't even send a funny video to any of my friends because they're scared that it's it could be malicious, or it could be a scam, or and then everybody is so suspicious of links and emails. It makes communication difficult, and makes sharing things difficult, and it's because of this criminal element is so successful in getting into our networks, with this social engineering and the phishing. Now people are suspicious, so it kind of just breaks down society. Honestly, it's a breakdown of society. And some people have already talked about how social media, it has things that are good and things that are bad. And the bad side of social media is related to this idea that, we can't trust each other, because it may not be a person that I can trust. It might be a cyber criminal trying to get information out of me. So,
yeah, that is sad. And to your point, sounds like your just cause is protect our freedom.
So yeah, can we protect our freedom of movement, freedom of communication, the American ideal of land of the free, and allow people to have liberty in cyberspace? If we can help at all, people just have a better life. I mean, that's the whole point of computer science, actually. Like, why do we even do computer science? Why do we even have the internet or computers? It's supposed to make our life better. It's supposed to make it where we spend less time doing repetitive things. We have a machine help us with automation that allows us to spend more time with our family and in nature and doing things that are enjoyable.
Which is why we're here. You're a passionate person, which is always a tell that you probably have some heroes and people you look up to. Who might some of those be?
Well, my grandfather, that's my number one. I just love the way that he provided for his family, no questions asked, never complained. He just worked his butt off for 40, 50 years. And what does he have to show for it is his family, with a loving family. He's not a wealthy guy, and he would turn down roles that paid more if it didn't align with his beliefs. So that was really strong. And I look
Great role model.
People, for sure. Yeah, and it was good. It was good for me to see that, have that growing up, because that's a way of life. Other people that are highly profit motivated, you see the decisions they make are largely based on income and money. And when that's a whole different way of life, whole different mentality and focus. And you always hear the stories about the people who do that on their deathbed. They regret it. They wish they had spent more time with the family.
Right. Without question. I mean, it's almost universal that there was a thing I read recently. Nurses reported like the top 3 things people on their deathbed is like, I wish I took more risks. and I wish I didn't work so dang much.
Yes. So at Blue Team Alpha, what we've done is we wanted to create an environment where people can do the work that they want to do and feel strongly and passionately about and provide security services, but also two major things. One is fully remote. So you can work from home, you can work from anywhere in the world with a strong internet connection. So, like right now, I'm physically in Hawaii with my family, and I'm able to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, do a full day of work, and then spend the rest of the day with my kids in Hawaii. I think that's pretty rare in corporate America, where they just want you to be in an office, like come back to work in this building for 10 hours a day. Number two, our PTO policy, our time off policy is unlimited. You take the time off you need. And here's the funny thing. We have to force people to go on vacation because the type of people that are at Blue Team Alpha, this is what we do. Like, this is our passion, this is our life. And the work-life balance, we enjoy doing this type of work, and we don't realize that we've been doing it for 10 or 12 hours a day for the last 6 months. So it's up to us as managers to look at everybody to make sure they're balanced and be like, hey, you know what? You need a vacation. Why don't you try to go take a break for a couple of weeks? But if people need time off, it's unlimited. So if you have appointments, you have stuff that you need to do with your family, we don't have any single point of failure, and we've done a good job about having people that can step in for other people. Now, this is something that I think is really special. You know how in other companies, everybody is very cutthroat, and they want to they want to be at the single point of failure. They want to own whatever it is that they do, so they're irreplaceable. So like, no one else can do this job, it's mine, and they don't want to share even with their coworkers.
Right.
They want to be that. So we try to avoid that problem. We don't want people to have complete ownership of a process or a system, because we want them to be able to take leave and go on vacation. You can't do that if no one else can do that job. So we want to have everybody be able to do someone else's job. That way, if they're out sick or if they're on vacation, the company still functions, and there are no single points of failure.
The status quo is no good for you, is it?
It doesn't work, and I don't know. I hope I'm not the only person that feels this way. I'm trying to find other people that are like
Dan
this.
Dan Price, who runs, he's the first one that comes to mind who speaks. He's very public about that. You would probably resonate with a lot of what he has to say is quick payments or something like that. But he created this great big company, and he's questions the same thing. Like, why do we put people in a cubicle and grind them down and not care that they actually have some mental health or physical health or those crises?
Mental health. I think that's one of the biggest factors of performance, across the board, and even in society is health, physical and mental health and emotional health. And I think America in general is doing a really bad job of providing, healthcare options to the citizens. So anything that we can do, anything that I can do to help improve somebody's health, I think it benefits all of us, and that goes down even to our voting habits. If you look at the people who are running for office, I like to see, I try to determine what their values are. What are their motivations? Why are they running for office? What are they trying to accomplish? And one thing that I look at is health, not just for, because I've had a bad experience with the healthcare system myself and the VA and being injured and getting, support for that. It's not only for veterans, but all people who live in the US, I think, have similar problems with the healthcare system. So it's all, you see, it's all connected.
It feels like, it feels like it's quite honestly, to me, it feels like it's about to break. I don't think it's a state. If you have to go have the experiences that you had, and particularly as a veteran, right? You always say, like, listen, if we're going to send somebody over, when we take them back, we have to bring them into our arms. We ask them to give up their life. So we have to take responsibility for that. And you know already that does not happen.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's
really surprising. You know, I never would have thought it would get this bad.
Mhm.
So I think you're right. Potentially could get off the rails at some point and just the whole thing could be a house of cards. You know,
It-
the whole system.
yeah, there's a lot of argument that that's happening already, and that how long can people endure before cultural change has to happen? For not that this is about me, but for what I do as a fractional professional, I can't sit in a cubicle and be abused for 80 hours a week.
Right.
I reject that. I think America has way too much promise for me to do that. But that's status quo.
Yeah.
So I think there's these erosions of these norms that are happening. Since we're talking about healthcare, are there some categories or some targets that are either more vulnerable or more of a target, like is the healthcare industry? I know we target utilities. Are there some that the bad actors just really like to aim for?
Yeah, there definitely seems to be a pattern where the cyber criminals, specifically cybercrime, they look for easy targets. They don't want to spend a lot of resources going after a hard target they have to work for. They're going to look for companies that have systems that are out of date, not patched, they're vulnerable, and they're just going to hit that. It's not it, and that could be anything. It could be they have no idea who the victim is until after they get access. So
Mhm.
they'll go and look for that easy way in. Then they go and say, well, where are we? What is this company? You know, so that's number one, is anybody who has that out of date vulnerable system is immediately an easy target. So don't
That
be
sounds like that's going to
specifically.
index towards the smaller business to me.
It could be small business. It also could be a large business that has networks that are so vast they're not keeping track of everything that's out there. So, you know, that's one thing, and we can prevent that really easy by having basic cyber hygiene. Just do the basics, and you don't have to have a huge budget to do that. Blue Team Alpha, you know, we have different packages for different people, and we have a basic cyber hygiene package that, you know, is useful to everybody. For, you know, every sector, every industry can do the minimum. That's number one. Number two, there are sectors that are more valuable. However, it takes more effort. So if a particular group is going after, for example, an insurance company, if there is an insurance company that is providing cyber security insurance, that is a very valuable target, because if a cyber criminal gets unauthorized access to that company and is able to download their list of customers and the value of their insurance, or how much could potentially be paid out in a cyber attack, that is intelligence for them that they can turn around and say, okay, here's a list of targets, and we know they have insurance, so they're more likely to pay, so we're more likely to get have a profitable attack.
Bad guys they're pretty smart for bad guys, but you get an understanding of why, because there's powers even behind them that motivate them.
Another one would be somebody that has a huge incentive to recover quickly, and they're more likely to pay a ransom or an extortion, like a hospital. They don't want to play around
Mhm.
with people's lives, and to the hospital, it's just business. At some
Mhm.
point, they're looking at the cost. Insurance does this as well, but
Mhm.
these critical sectors, they have to look at the cost. And I
Right.
understand the mentality, like, I can pay, you know, 100,000 to recover right now today, or I might have to pay 500,000 to recover in 2 weeks.
Mhm.
If you only look at the numbers and at face value, you want to go with that quick, cheap option. The problem is, by doing the quick, cheap option, it keeps the cybercrime business profitable, and you're just helping, you know, you're harming yourself and others, because the cyber criminals, they take that money and they use it to go and do more crime.
Go
You know,
right next door, you're making a deal with the devil.
yeah. So you know, everybody, DHS, FBI, they're all saying, don't pay. Please do not pay. And they even, were trying to sanction different groups and organizations saying, well, now it's illegal to pay. So even though it's cheaper and faster, you legally can't do it because they're sanctioned. And I think that's a good tactic. And also offering bounties is good. If the government can say, we'll pay you a bounty if you help us catch these known criminals, that's good. And then Microsoft did something really cool where they're taking a legal angle, because the cyber criminals and nation state, all of these criminal hackers, they're using Microsoft's brand. So they're able to take them to court and say, you're using our brand, so we're going to take your server and your system. And they're able to sinkhole it and get all of that, all the victims calling in, and then work with the victims to get it cleaned up. So
we see this all the time. You get a phishing attack and there's Microsoft's logo, and it's not legit.
Yes. So Microsoft, I love what they're doing. They're using the court system and legal trademark law to go after those people who are using their brand. I love that. I hope other companies follow that model, for people who are using them to do those attacks. And more to come. I know I've only got you for about 7 more minutes, so I just have a couple more things I do want to cover. I don't think we can talk about digital without talking about AI. Do you think AI is going to have an effect here? Do you guys see utilizing it to increase our ability to defend ourselves? It already has, AI and machine learning and neural networking. It's been around for years, maybe even as long as a decade. Big companies already had it behind the scenes. They already had hired AI engineers to build systems. They weren't public. So it's already been here. It's already been happening, like automated systems and for offense and defense. And actually at one of the black hats, they set up, I think IBM had Deep Blue set up a cyber attack scenario that was automated using some of this technology. But then everything changed last year, right? In December, OpenAI dropped a bomb on all of us called ChatGPT, and people went to town. How can we use this for good and evil? And we immediately started to see really good phishing emails that were written in perfect English, because ChatGPT is like having a calculator for the English language. So they can write in the prompt, and they call it prompt engineering. You write in a prompt and you get out a really nice, and you can change the tone or the style of the output so it sounds more natural. You copy and paste that into your attack email, and it removes those red flags that we used to look for, like broken English and things misspelled or things that just sounded weird. As an American, like, we can just, when we read a paragraph, we can't really train for this, but it's like, it seems weird, something is off. Well, those kind of red flags are gone, because now it's coming out of this AI system, so it's almost perfect.
Are you using AI to fight the AI?
Well, yes. So exactly, that for the same reason that ChatGPT type of language models and technology can be used for bad, we also use it for good. So I quickly wrote a policy for Blue Team Alpha to use all the AI that's available. Let's use it. Like, let's stay ahead of the curve, because we know criminals are going to use it. They use anything that's available to them. Let's use it as well to see if, to stay ahead of the attackers.
Nice. More to come on that, right? I mean, you're right. It's been around for 10 years, but like every technology, it has the ability to get better and better and more refined as we go.
Yeah, and it's definitely very early. We're still trying to figure it out. We're seeing a lot of integrations. So when you have a tool that integrates with AI, it's going to enrich what you already had before. So for example, we have a SOC where we're monitoring endpoints, and in the past, when we see something, we would have to go and research it. But now with the integration, the AI can automatically do what we would have done manually. So it allows you to be faster and more efficient. So that's good for business, because now it's taking less human hours to do the same level of work.
Good. That's a good use of it, right? Like you and I were talking early in the conversation. the social media can be good, used for good or evil. And there's always this tension, isn't there? Between which way is it going to go? And it goes both ways, of course.
Yeah, and we have to look for people that want to do good and are on the good side in order to defend ourselves from the people that for whatever reason are on the evil side. And whether they know it or not, they're contributing to the bad side by their activity.
Yeah.
I like to think that everybody has capacity for good, and I give people benefit of doubt, but there is evil in the world, and we can't deny it. We can't just put the blinders on. Like, it does exist.
Right.
So there's an old saying, I don't know where it comes from, but it says it's better to be a warrior in a garden than to be a gardener at war.
Ah,
I don't know if you've heard of that one.
yeah. Similar things. Yep.
So yeah, Blue Team Alpha, we want to be the warrior in the garden that's just protecting everybody so they can go and have a better life.
Yeah, that's in the 300, in the movie The 300, about Spartan versus Zeus. And Zeus had 10 million soldiers or something like that. And of course, Sparta had 300. And they got face to face, and he said, "How will you defeat my 10,000 warrior soldiers?" And he said, "I have 300 warriors. You have 10,000, bakers, blacksmiths, better to be a warrior in a garden." I like that.
Yes,
That's
sir.
good. That's a good place to close, because we're at 10 o'clock.
Nah, well, time flies.
Time flies. I appreciate it, Dan.
If I can help spread the message and do some good, I'm here for it.
That's great. It's a team effort like anything else. All right, man. Enjoy Hawaii today.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you,
Aloha.
Dan. I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.